All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Get Your Play Online. We're so excited to have everybody here and to be joining us for another really exciting week of our summer programming. I'm going to give everyone a few seconds to get on and connected so that we can start a really cool activity. We're going to learn how we turn something as odd looking as this, all this is a water bottle and a sock on the end, into our very own bubble snakes, and I'm super excited to show you how. I think it's going to be a really fun activity, and it's going to be a little messy, so that's why I'm outside here today to do my activity, and I'm so excited that you're all here to join me. So let's see, my name is Morgan. If you've never been to one of my lives before, I like to focus on crafts that you can do at home with some simple materials that you should have on hand. I like to focus on things that we can use to recycle, because I like to make sure we're protecting our planet whenever we can, and it's great to be able to use things you already have. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of a recycling craft with some older water bottles that you may have lying around. And we're just gonna make a fun and kind of messy activity, and I don't know about you, but I think it's really fun sometimes to do messy activities. So, if you've never come to one of my lives before, I do like to start off with a joke most weeks, and I found a really great one that fits with our theme. So if you're just checking in, our theme this week is animals, and so the animal we're gonna be focusing on today in our craft and our experiment is the snake. Alright, so let's see, I'm gonna pull up my joke right here. So, if a snake went to school, what do you think their favorite subject would be? Does anyone have any ideas? If you do, you can always leave them down in the comments for us. We'd love to see what your ideas are. The answer to this joke is history. Alright, so that was a really fun one. I'm glad we got to start off our live with that joke. If you're just tuning in, this is a preview of what we're going to be making. I know it looks a little silly, but stick around and I promise you it's going to be really, really fun and really cool. So, as we know, we like to focus on science here on this segment and how we can get our brains thinking about different ways of doing things and different ways of doing activities and experiments to see which one's going to work the best. So with that, I like to focus on the scientific method, which is a way scientists think about things and make educated guesses, and if you make an educated guess, that's actually called a hypothesis. So a hypothesis is your brain's way of saying, I wonder what's going to happen, I wonder what would happen if I did this, or if I changed this element of my experiment. And so today, I'm going to talk about my two hypotheses for our experiment. And we're going to revisit these throughout the video so that you have a better understanding of what we're talking about and that you can make your very own hypotheses as well. So, today we're going to be making bubble snakes, and we're going to be making it with two different bottles because I wanted to test which bottle size was going to make the best bubble snakes. So, for that, I have a small water bottle, as you can see here. This is a 16.9 ounce bottle, and I have a bigger bottle. And this is a 33.8 ounce bottle, so if you put them together, you can tell they're very different. So I think our bubble snake from the bigger bottle will make a bigger and longer snake. So I think the bigger bottle means a bigger bubble snake. And I think our smaller bottle will make a smaller bubble snake. So that's my first hypothesis, that this bottle will make a bigger bubble snake than this bottle. My second hypothesis is that our dish soap is going to work better than another type of soap. So today we're going to try using dish soap that you use to clean your dishes, and then we're going to use some body wash, so maybe something you'd use in the shower or the bathtub. And so we're going to see if this soap or this soap works better. And I think the dish soap is going to work better than the body wash because the dish soap is, I don't know why I think it's going to work better, but I really think the dish soap might work better. But we're going to have to test it and see and find out. So, now that we did our joke, which was really funny, we covered our hypotheses, which we're going to revisit and touch on later. Now I think we should talk about the supplies you'll need to be able to do this experiment at home. So, you're going to need a plastic water bottle, or multiple if possible, and the more you have, the more water bottles that you can test. You're going to need some scissors, and you'll see why in just a second. You're going to need some dish soap, and in our case today we're going to test some body wash, so you may want to have different kinds of soap to test. You're going to need a thin sock, and it should be one that you don't mind getting messy because we are going to dip it in a lot of soap. You're going to need a rubber band, and you'll see why. And then to make this easier, you're going to need to use a craft knife. Now, craft knives are only for grown-ups or adults. So if you're a kid watching this video, make sure you ask a grown-up to do this part of the craft for you. We want to make sure nobody gets cut and you stay very safe while doing this. So if you are going to choose to use a craft knife, you're going to need to use and ask a grown-up to help you. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what all of these supplies look like. So we showed these before, but these are our plastic water bottles. I recycled both of these. We made sure we drank the liquid out of this drink and this drink, and so they didn't go to waste for our project, so that's great. We're going to need a pair of scissors. These are just a regular pair of scissors that I have here. Dish soap. We just have it in this container. We're also going to use this kind of soap, which is just some regular body wash, so we'll try that as well. We're going to need some thin socks, so I just grabbed a couple of the ones that I already had at home that I didn't mind getting a little soapy, so we're going to use those. And you're not going to need to cut the socks, so they are going to be usable after the experiment is over. So we're not going to ruin the socks, they're just going to get a little soapy for a little while, and they're going to need to be washed before you wear them, or else I think you could be very slippery. You're going to need some rubber bands. I just have a few here. It doesn't really matter what thickness they are. And then this is just our craft knife. It may be called an X-Acto knife, but like I said, this is only for the grown-ups watching the video. So if you're a kid watching, ask your grown-up or somebody that may be at home that's a grown-up to help you out with this part. We want to make sure everyone stays really, really safe. All right, awesome. So you're also going to need a little bit of water. I just have the water here in the cup, so we'll see how we use that in a little bit. So I think we're ready to get started on our experiment. So I'm going to move the camera down just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take off the label. So I'm going to use my scissors to carefully cut that off and then peel it back so that the label is all off of the bottle. So that looks perfect. Another thing I should mention with the bottles is if you're doing this by yourself, that's great. If you're doing it with other people, everyone's going to need their own bottle because you are going to put your mouth on the top of the bottle and you want to make sure you're not sharing that with anybody. So make sure it's a water bottle that only you have drank from. So that's an important thing to note. All right, so now that we got the label off this one, we got to get the label off this one. This one might be a little harder since it's so long. We want to be very careful with our scissors. All right. Go ahead and peel that off. Ooh. Alright, that's okay. That little bit can stay on. That's not going to be a problem. So I'll pop those off to the side. Alright, so now we have our two bottles with no labels on it. This is just going to make it a little bit easier for us to see what we're doing. So, the next part is the part that you're going to need a grown-up for. Because we're going to use our craft knife to make a very small hole in our water bottle because we're going to end up cutting off the end of our water bottle, and you'll see why in just a second. So, I am a grown-up, so I'm going to go ahead and use my craft knife all by myself, and I'm going to be very, very careful. I'm going to point our camera down so you can see what I'm doing. And to be very safe, I'm going to put a sock down so that my bottle doesn't wiggle. I'm going to put that down here. And then very carefully, I'm going to make one small hole in my water bottle. Just like that. So now that I made a hole, I'm going to carefully put that top back on my craft knife to make sure I stay nice and safe. And then I'm going to find that spot where I made the hole with my scissors and then carefully cut around the whole water bottle. So when you're all done, it should look like this. So you're not going to need this part of it, so you can make sure this part gets recycled, but we're going to put it over to the side right now because we are not going to need it. And so the part that you need for the experiment is the part with the mouthpiece on it. So since that's done, I'm going to put it over to the side. Now I'm going to get my second bottle and do the same thing. Very carefully make a small hole using my craft knife. So making sure my fingers are away, carefully pressing in. This bottle's a little bit thicker, but I was still able to make that hole. So just make sure that's the part that your grown-up helps you with, and then I'm going to carefully slide my scissors in and cut around. Cutting. Alright. Perfect. So once again, we're not going to need this bottom part. You could actually save this for later in our experiment if you wanted to use this to mix your bubble solution. I used I brought some other containers, but I think I'm going to go ahead and try to use that one as well. So once again, this is all we're going to need. We have the part with the mouthpiece, and it's cut. You also want to be careful in case there's any rough edges on here that you don't cut your finger. So just making sure you stay nice and safe while you do this activity. So we have our 2 bottles that are just the bottom of it. These are going to be what we make our snake on. So let's start with this one. We're going to start with this bottle. I'm going to bring you down again so you can be looking at what I'm doing. And I'm going to put this down here. It's going to balance nicely for me. And now I'm going to take my sock. So I think a thinner sock will work a little bit better, because if it's a thick sock, you may have to push more air through the bottle to make it work. So what we're going to do is we're going to carefully stretch out the sock and put it over top of our bottle. Now, the important part is that you want to make sure that the part on the end of our bottle is very flat. So you can see how it's nice and flat against the top, and there's not any fabric bunching like this. If it's bunching, it's not going to work as well. So you want to pull that sock nice and tight so it's flat up against there. That looks really good. But now you can see we have all this extra sock. Now if you wanted to, you could cut the sock, but I like to make sure I can reuse the sock. So all I do is I fold it down just like this. So now you can see we're still going to be able to blow out of this end while still being able to do this and keep it nice and sturdy. So then I like to take a rubber band and just put it over the top of the bottle, and that's just to make sure your sock stays in the right spot while we're doing the experiment. So now that I did that one, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to put this down. It may be easier if you fold your sock kind of in half before you slide it on, if you know it's going to be longer than the bottle, which this one will be. So see, I've kind of folded it in half. So now when I slide it over the top, it's already flush at the end, just like that. So that looks good. See how there's not any extra fabric bunching around at the top? That means it's going to be perfect and good to go for our experiment. So I'm going to put that rubber band around the top of this one as well. And now that is good to go. So let's see. We have our 2 bubble blowing tools. And remember, my first hypothesis is that this one is going to make a bigger bubble than this one. So now we're getting ready to make our bubble solution. I'm going to put those off to the side for right now. And I think I'm going to mix my first bubble solution in my recycled bottom, because that's the one I'm going to be able to fit this one inside to dip. So I think I'm going to put dish soap in this one. So this is the fun part of the science experiment. You get to decide how much soap you want to put inside your container. So there's going to be a lot of different things you have control over in this activity, and all of these changes are going to make a difference in the result of your experiment. So that's the fun part about being a scientist, is guessing and making choices along your experiment to see which is going to work better. So let's see. I'm going to move the camera down again so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to put, let's see how many pumps I want to put in there. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think 6 is going to be a good number. So you can see we have a good amount of soap in the bottom. Maybe let's put 3 more. We'll put 10. 8, 9, and 10 pumps of soap in there. So now the entire bottom of it is nice and covered in soap. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour half of the water I brought out. Once again, this is an element you get to control how much you want to put in there. I'm going to pour about half in there. That looks good. And then I just have a fork. And I'm going to stir the solution so the soap mixes with the water. So I'll move my hand so you can see that. So this is essentially, we're making our own bubble solution. If you've ever blown bubbles, this is going to be the same idea. So this is the same kind of solution that you'd use with a bubble wand. We're just making it at home. And to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to trim some of the extra plastic off the top of it, remembering to be very careful with my scissors. Keeping myself safe, keeping my fingers out of the way. Making slow movements. With the scissors, we're just going to turn it. This is going to make it easier when we go to dip our bubble snake into the water. All right, there we go. So you can see I just made it a little bit shorter to make it easier to dump in there. Being very careful to remember that there may be sharp edges on the top. So, perfect. So that one's all mixed, and I think in this container I'm going to put our body wash. So remember, this is the one we talked about earlier. Same thing. There's no set amounts that you need to use for it. We're just going to put a little bit in there. All right, that looks good. And now with that one, we're going to put the rest of our water. Oh, that looks so interesting. Can you see how the water and soap are kind of not mixing up there quite right? We're going to use our fork again to give it a good stir. So stir that up. Mix the soap with the water. Oh, it smells good. This smells like cucumbers. So, all right. So now we have our two different mixtures. Now the one that's darker green is our dish soap. So this is our dish soap, and this one right here is our body wash. So now here's the fun part. Here's the part that's going to get a little bit messy and really fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our bubble blowing tool, and we're going to make sure the cap is off of the bottle because we're going to need to blow out of this end. So what we do is we take our sock and we dip it into our bubble solution, and once it has bubbles on it, we're going to blow out on our bottle just like this. So it's important that you don't breathe in while this is to your mouth, because then you can get some soap in your mouth, and trust me, I did it once and it did not taste very good. So you also want to make sure you're using non-toxic soap so that in case you do accidentally get some in your mouth, you're not going to get sick. So making sure you use non-toxic soap and that you don't breathe in, you're going to stay safe. So using a non-toxic soap and only breathing out while this is in your mouth, you're going to stay nice and safe doing this activity. So you dip the end inside the solution, get it nice and soapy, and then you're going to take a deep, deep breath in and then blow out. And that's when the magic is going to happen. So I think we should go ahead and give it a try. I'm going to stand up for this part of the activity because I don't want to get the soap on my pants. So I'm going to go ahead and stand up, move my chair out of the way. All right. So we're going to do the big one first, and I think I'm going to try the one with the body soap in it first. So, just like this, I'm dipping the bottom of it in the solution, making sure it gets wet, but not too wet. And you can kind of let it drip off, just like that. Perfect. So, now here's the fun part. I'm going to put it to my mouth, and we're going to see if a bubble snake comes out the bottom. Are we ready? I'm going to take a big, deep breath. It worked! I made a bubble snake. Let's try again. See how it looks like a snake on the bottom? Isn't that awesome? You can see all of the really pretty colors it makes. And you can just let it go. You can hold it, and the bubble snake will kind of hang out on your hand. That's really cool. I think we should put a little bit more solution on there and see how it goes. Perfect. I'm just letting that extra drip off. And I'm going to try to take a really, really deep breath this time and see how it works. Okay. I'm going to pretend I'm blowing out the candles on my birthday cake. Okay. Oh, that was a really long one. Oh my goodness, it ran away from me. But look at that big old bubble snake. Wow, this is working out really well. So, we tried it with this one. I think we should try it with our littler one and see which one makes a better snake. Because now remember, that was my first hypothesis, that the big one was going to do better than the little one. So we have that. I'm going to dip it in our solution, give it a good dip. I'm using the same solution so we have a good comparison. All right. We're just going to let that solution drip off. And the same thing, I'm going to try to take a big, big, deep breath, just like I'm blowing out that birthday candle, and we're going to see what kind of snake we can make. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh, I think the littler one might work better. Look how much thicker that soap is. It looks like a big snake. Let's see if I keep blowing what will happen. Wow, that is pretty cool. Look at that bubble snake. And I'm going to put that one on the ground. Now I think I want to test to see if this one will do better with the dish soap. So remember, those are our two elements we're testing. We're testing our body wash and our dish soap, and we're also testing the two sizes of bottle. So let's give this one a dip into our dish soap. See how it's going right in there. We're just getting the bottom wet. It doesn't need to get super, super wet. I don't want extra drips. Let those fall off. All right. 3, 2, 1. Oh my goodness. It looks like they're about equal to me. I don't know. You'll have to tell me if you can see a difference. Let's take another deep breath. Wow, look how long that snake is. That's pretty cool. Let's see if it'll sit in my hand. Wow, that is really cool. It feels so fluffy and foamy. It's almost like a cloud. I'll put that on the ground right here. Now I want to try to see how well our big bottle will do with our dish soap, but I'm going to have to pour it into a different container since it won't fit into that small one. So I'm pouring it into a different container I brought for our experiment. So now it's in this one. So let's give it a nice dip in there. Make it nice and wet. Alright, I'm going to let the drips fall off. Perfect. Now remember, when I'm taking a deep breath in, I'm only blowing air out of my bubble blower. I'm not breathing in because I don't want to get any soap in my mouth. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh my goodness! The dish soap worked way better! Look how long that snake is! Whoa! See, it's moving like a snake. My goodness, I think we need to try that again. That one was so cool. Alright, letting that extra water drip off. This will be our last test of our experiment. I'm going to take a step back and see how long we can make this one. Alright, ready? 3, 2, 1. My goodness, I really think our dish soap worked the best. That is so fun. I'm going to go ahead and bring my chair back over and we're going to finish up our video for the day. Alright, wow. That was really fun. I really enjoyed having a chance to make those bubble snakes with you guys. I think if we go back to our hypotheses, my first one was the big bottle will make a bigger snake. I think that's true. This big bottle made such a big snake with that dish soap, I couldn't even believe it. And then my other one is that the dish soap will work better than the other soaps, and I think that's true. So it looks like both of my hypotheses were right today. That's pretty fun. If you've watched my other videos, a lot of the times my hypotheses aren't right, and that's totally okay. You don't have to be right every time you do science. That's the fun part. This experiment is so cool because you can control so many of the different elements. For example, you can control how much water you put in your soap, what kind of soap you use, how much soap you use, what kind of bottle, what kind of sock. Really, you can just use your imagination and make this experiment whatever you want it to be. I think that's such a cool part of science. So, I want to thank you all so much for coming to Get Your Play Online and for visiting our summer programming. We're having such a great time doing it for you. We have a couple more weeks coming up, and we're really hoping you're going to come back and check it out. We have some really fun themes. I know the activity I have for next week is going to be really cool. I've been preparing for it for weeks. I know. You're going to have to come back and see what it's going to be, and we're so excited to see you all next week. Thanks so much for coming out, and have a great day.